We're gonna. So I would like to welcome everyone today to Real Talk Farm Stress, our podcast from Penn State Extension. I'm Sonya Nace, one of your hosts of our program. And with me today, I have Hannah Smith-Brubaker, who has wonderful insight as the PASA Sustainable Agriculture Executive Director and a local farmer. So she's my neighbor. Hannah, thanks so much for coming and joining in today in the conversation about mental health and farming and the things that are hard and the things we can do to work together to make it a little easier for all of us in the farm world.
Oh, I'm so pleased that I could join you today. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. So, as we get started, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, so I am a pastured livestock farmer in Juniata County, and I also serve as the executive director of PASA Sustainable Agriculture. I previously served as Deputy Secretary of Agriculture for Pennsylvania, and I currently serve on the Governor's Advisory Commission on Women.
You've got quite a resume. It's great to have you and have all of your knowledge and your insight as we start our conversation today. So, thank you so much once again for being here. So I know you have a lot of experience in farming, and I know that you have lots of contacts. But what are some of the main stressors with the farmers that you serve? What do you see that really affects them the most?
Yeah, so our organization's coming up on 34 years at this point. And so a lot of our founding members are retiring out of farming at this point. So that farm transition, I know we say that a lot, but it's really true. It's very challenging to find a match between a retiring farmer and a younger farmer, often because their visions don't line up. The retiring farmer finds it very challenging to let go of their vision for the land and allow space for the younger farmer. And this applies whether it's transition to someone in his or her family or someone completely new. Sadly, that can lead to farms being sold for development. So that's just a huge area of stress. Next, I would say climate change. Not being able to count on the weather patterns, all the flooding and droughts. I was just seeing something on weather.com about, again, projected to be the hottest summer on record. And so with that unpredictability, it introduces stressors. There's labor, of course. We live in a country where only 30% of the agriculture workforce is filled by US born workers. It's extremely challenging to find skilled farm employees. And, there's a willing immigrant workforce, but our immigration laws are out of date. And so that whole, can I find someone to do the work that I need them to do on my farm? And that really leads to issues around stresses around farm viability. So, some portions of our agricultural system in the US are highly subsidized, and some aren't subsidized at all. And we also have an obsession with really cheap food. And so sometimes there's just not it, a farmer, you think about dairy farmers, they're just often it costs them more to produce the milk than what they're getting paid. So I would say these are the primary ones. There are plenty of other ones. We can talk about, farm accidents. I'd love to talk about that a little bit later on, but yeah, those are probably the primary ones that I see in the farmers that we're serving.
Yeah, there's so many stressors, and every farm family, farm community, I think across the country, because we are reaching lots of people with our podcast. We even reach people in different countries. They all see different things, but in a way, they're all somewhat united
Right.
in the stressors that they're seeing. And we're hoping through some of our information that we can put out there, we can find resources and strategies to help people who run the farms, own the farms, work on the farms to be able to find a degree of mental wellness and peace in even some of those most stressful situations.
Sure. Of course. Of course.
So you also farm. So tell us a little bit about your farm.
Well, I'd go back to the farm succession planning. So the original farm is an organic, diversified vegetable farm. And that farm started in the early 80s and was the farm of my spouse at the time. Um, and so that was the very beginning. And we, of course, over time added chickens and sheep, and now there's a flower enterprise. And when my spouse and I took the farm business over from her parents, of course, there was a lot to work through. Her father was working the equivalent of 3 full-time jobs, early morning to late night, and really had very much like a mentorship approach. And so we had a lot of young people working on our farm at the time. And that wasn't necessarily the vision that everybody was willing to carry on. There weren't siblings that were willing to come back to the farm at that time. Unfortunately, just a few years after the farm transition happened, my father-in-law was killed in a tractor accident on our farm. And that, of course, turned everything on its head and presented many new challenges beyond just like the intense grief that we were going through. But we find that these really significant events can have repercussions, just there's the family, there's the customers, there's the community. He was a real leader in the community. So many stressors resulting from that. And then after his passing, different family members wanted to come back to the farm. And so there were beginning of new enterprises. And even with something really positive, like a new farm enterprise, there's interpersonal relationship issues. And I think it's things that we all can relate to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that was probably, well, of course, the losing my father-in-law was, of course, the most stressful thing that has happened at all in terms of farming.
It
And
is
then
probably one of the worst fears any farm family has is that an accident could
yeah,
truly change the structure of
yes,
what the farm looks like and your family looks like as well. That had to be an incredibly difficult time, and I'm so sorry for your loss.
thank you. Thank you.
How did you come together as an enterprise, a farming enterprise, and as a family to deal with this such a stressful time?
My goodness. Well, we were very fortunate that some of our customers had been with us, oh goodness, for like 25 years. And because we do direct to customer sales, we had a very large CSA at that time. Most of our customers were in state college. Um, oh, those customers came and helped us and volunteered on the farm until we could sort of get our bearings. And then we decided to downsize. It wasn't possible. Some of it was labor, some of it was, my father actually also passed away at the same time. So it was okay, we have to get our bearings. We want to stay in farming. What can we do that's at least manageable and meets our customers' needs and our needs? Eventually, we ended up transitioning away from the CSA and just selling in one grocery store and several restaurants, mostly in the Harrisburg area, although to some degree in State College as well. So it's just like it's like everything else. You just have to rely on your network, your friends, and your family, and you get through it.
Mhm.
And you
Kind of
change
yeah,
course
that's
as needed.
kind of a farming philosophy. It's
Yes,
very independent, but also interdependent on others as well.
yes.
So was it difficult to sort of change your philosophy of what kind of farm it was going to be?
Yeah, it was stressful because a number of things were converging during those times. There was, of course, just like the personal aspects of dealing with grief, but there was high customer demand, and our very low capacity for us to meet that demand. And so we worked with other farmers. They helped us out. They helped us out with products. We not too long after that, then, the pandemic
Oh,
came,
yes.
and with all of its stressors. But I think we learned a lot through that time. And so while it was stressful, we learned so much about how important our community is to us.
Mhm. Farming communities are really strong. I'm
Yes.
as a farm kid myself, and now the adult child of farmer family, generations of farmers. It's amazing to me how people come together, you know. But then also they'll go fix their tractor by themselves, and like
I
it's
know.
such a interesting dynamic of
Mhm.
farms and how they function. So
That's for sure.
you're also a member of many organizations and groups and really a great activist for our farming communities. What do you see in these organizations as opportunities, resources to respond to farmers exhibiting signs of stress?
Well, one of the things that's really important to us at PASA is we call it sort of like being in right relationship with each other, that we want to make sure that we get regular feedback from the farmers that we're serving, that we're out and about on their farms, that we're in relationship with them, that we know what's going on in each other's lives. Communication is a big part of it. And I know that for other organizations, that's similar. I've been involved with the Pennsylvania Farmers Union, and our farm is a member of the Vegetable Growers Association. I hear this in the No-Till Network and Farm Bureau and Extension, of course. It We can't just sit at a computer and theoretically, oh, what do farmers need? No, we need to be in direct relationship, understanding it. One of the things I love about leading the PASA organization is, our employee base is majority farmers. Either they're currently farming or they've farmed full time in the past. So when we're making decisions as a team about what services to offer, what programs to start up, it's because we know intimately what farmers are facing in terms of the challenges. And I love that about our organization.
One common theme in anyone I've interviewed for this podcast has been the key of communication,
Mm,
open and consistent communication with each other, and talking about the needs, talking about the strategies and the opportunities. I
absolutely.
I definitely feel like if if we weren't talking to each other, things would be even harder than maybe
Mm,
they are on any given Tuesday,
for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And I think we really found that, during the pandemic, so much of what we thought we knew just didn't work during that time. If you think about sort of how food was getting to someone's plate during that time, it just was all the distribution systems were a mess, and you couldn't go to the grocery store and get the things that you typically wanted. And we didn't even know, should we allow our customers come to our farm, really early, before we knew some of the science behind what was happening. I was thinking recently, we're in preparation for today, about people who took that challenging situation and really made the best of it. And I was thinking about center markets in Center County. And, Sabina Carey, who's leading that, she was calling all the farmers and saying, okay, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do here? And asking the farmers to take a chance on this idea she had to send at least some of what we were producing, because many of us lost, markets, to Center County to be aggregated, and to be sold to a whole new customer base that she knew was there and was really hungry for good food. And now, that business has just continued to grow. I took a look at the website before I jumped on today, and they have over 50 producers working with them. They've just opened a store in the Nittany Mall.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, I think that customers learned a lot during that time, which was great for farmers because when they couldn't find it in the grocery store, they actually started reaching out to their local farmer. And farmers learned a lot about what is the delivery system, what is the distribution system that our customers really need in order to make it convenient and affordable for them. So I just love when, like you said, it's like the story of farming is you face these challenging situations and you roll up your sleeves and you use your ingenuity and you just come up with a solution that actually is better than anything you could have imagined if you hadn't have faced that crisis.
Mhm. A friend of mine told me years ago, teamwork makes the dream work. And I think we made that, it does happen. It does happen even in farming. And it's probably from a sports quote or something like that, knowing my friend, but it holds true here too. It is a team effort to get
Absolutely.
so much of our products from farms,
Yes.
whatever it is, that someone's producing out into the people, into the markets. So yeah, taking the tough situation like a pandemic and learning from it and thriving if it's possible, Uh, you can't control all of the variables, right? But the things you can try to make them as much of a positive mindset, um, to work for you. So yeah, I absolutely am. I'm gonna have to check out that website and see and check it out for our listeners who aren't local. This is a in central Pennsylvania, and you maybe they could go to the website too and check it out. So
Good.
thanks for giving that us
Definitely.
that idea. So, um, do you know of support areas that maybe farmers could reach out to if they're finding hard times, if they're finding that they just need to maybe get some ideas
Mhm.
or find someone to talk to?
Yeah, so sort of on the national front, I often recommend that farmers reach out to Farm Aid. They have a 1-800 number. It's just 1-800 Farm Aid. And they really have the ability to help farmers who are in a real crisis situation. It's not going to be um, a permanent fix, but when you're in a crisis and you need a little bit of help, it can be really helpful. Of course, things sometimes can be so challenging that people consider taking their own lives. And if anybody is in that situation, dialing 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is really important and very helpful. We know that getting help quickly in those situations makes all the difference. Now, beyond that, in terms of just sort of managing some of the day-to-day challenges, um, at PASA, going back to the pandemic a little bit, we know that farmers receive some financial support during those times, but farm workers didn't. And so one of the programs that we're wrapping up right now is a farm worker relief fund. And anyone who worked on a farm or in a meat packing plant during the pandemic is eligible for a $600 check. And so this wouldn't be the farm owner or the business owner, it would be people working on the front line. And they can just go to farmworkers.com and we can help them through the process. So it just, they need a little bit of, they need some identification information and a little bit of demonstration of the work that they did.
Is this just for Pennsylvania?
No, it's actually a national program, but we're doing it for 11 states across the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast.
Oh, that's
So,
great information. Thank you.
absolutely. Then of course, in terms of longer term stress relievers on the labor front, we run 3 apprenticeship programs, a pre-apprenticeship program, and an agroforestry certificate program. And so these are matches between a mentor farmer and a new farmer. It's a 2-year program. And by the end of it, that person is ready to either farm for themselves or take on a management position on a farm. And so we have seen how that actually can be tied to farm transitions as well. because a farmer is maybe building in that person that they didn't have before to take over their farm business. These apprenticeship programs, of course, also have a tie to farm succession planning, because we've seen in several cases where the farmer now has someone that they didn't have before ready to take over the farm business, which can be a big part of the viability of that business for transitioning it. And you can find out about that or any of the rest of our services at pasafarming.org. And I think just the last thing I would say, because I did start talking about stressors around climate change, is we have a huge project we're kicking off all across the East Coast of the US, so Maine to South Carolina, helping farmers install conservation practices on their land to help them mitigate the risks associated with climate change. So where we've seen farms that, for example, have lost entire seasons of crops due to flooding, what can we do on that farm to help mitigate some of those risks? Because we know that, the support for farmers in these high risk situations really is going to take long-term strategies. We can't just put a Band-Aid on it. On my own farm, I grow fiber sheep, and boy, they are suffering in the summertime being wool sheep. And so I'm getting ready to install a bunch of trees in my pasture for the long term for shade, because we know that animals' feed conversion is really impacted by how uncomfortable they are or comfortable they are. And so that's not only making my sheep more comfortable, it's helping my bottom line. And so we'll be working with farms to think through some of these approaches. And that you can either go to our website, or we have another one, climatesmart.org. So if people want to start applying for that, they can.
Wow, you are a wealth of information, Hannah. I've learned so much already just in our few minutes together. Um, there is a lot of different ways that when we can share the information and the resources, like right now, I just learned all that from you, and just putting it out there for other farmers in our area across the eastern part of the United States. What great opportunities to find really sometimes very sensible ways, like planting trees to keep your sheep cooler, um, and also finding ways to help the workers who are really the lifeblood of many of our farms. Thank you so much. These are, I was going to ask you about success stories, but do you have any success stories related to any of these opportunities that you would be willing to share with us?
Well, I certainly, to jump back to Center Marcus, think that's a huge success story. I think that the one other one I would mention is a farmer who was almost ready to go out of business because of really not having the same traditional markets available anymore. And some of that is because the price point, some of it was, not being able to really have the labor to help his business anymore. And he decided to diversify using agroforestry. So he was a pastured livestock farmer, integrating agroforestry, including nut trees, and I believe it was elderberries, and has found a whole new market that he wouldn't have ever anticipated. And those trees are growing in his pastures, and there's a lot of new technology to be able to protect those trees through an electrified wire, so that as they're growing up in the pasture, the cattle is not able to, damage the trees in any way. And they're getting the benefits of some rapidly growing trees and bushes, again, to provide shade, but now they have a market. There are a lot of farmers working cooperatively to aggregate things like nuts and berries that hasn't always been a big market for us here in Pennsylvania, but we know with everything happening in California, honestly, nuts and berries are coming to Pennsylvania. like a storm because things are too dry in California and we have the precipitation to support it. So I think in every day I hear about how creative and innovative farmers are. And it often comes from a very stress-filled situation that they've just got to find an answer to in order to stay in business.
And finding ways to talk about it and get the information out there gets people the ideas to be creative, find new ways, and hopefully alleviate some of the stressors that they are experiencing with those new ideas to be able to find those new income streams, find ways to keep their farm sustainable for many, many years, hopefully. Well, I really appreciated all of your thoughts, your knowledge. Thank you. Come back again anytime and share with us. We have lots more topics to come in our next few series of our Farm Stress podcast. And Hannah, thank you so much
Oh,
for your
thank you.
dedication to our farm community here in Pennsylvania and literally across the Eastern Seaboard.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be with you today.
Well, thanks, Hannah. And join us again on Real Talk Farm Stress Farm podcast. And my name's Sonya, and I'll see you next time.